All right, good morning, everybody. A very warm welcome to councillors, especially to our new members, to staff, to members of the public who might be watching this live stream, and to media. This is the first formal meeting of this new council, so a very warm welcome to you all. It's been a fairly busy last couple of weeks, and the swearing-in ceremony last week, I think, was something that hopefully everyone got to appreciate, and were able to have family and friends around there as much as possible. I think we all know very well it's Councillor Halalele had plenty of friends and family there. Very good response and good reaction to the announcement of you becoming deputy mayor. So that was excellent and a lot of fun. Since then, we've obviously been busy with a number of other bits and pieces around training and our strategy planning, and just really appreciate the time and effort that you have all put into taking part in those things. So thank you very much for that. Today's agenda is it's reasonably long with a number of pages, but most of that is taken up with a couple of documents. So we'll go through those as we get to them. We'll see how things work out time-wise, but at the moment we should be done hopefully by 11ish. See how the discussion goes. Could be earlier than that too. So anyway, we'll get on to things. So first of all, just asking for apologies. Obviously everyone's here, but if when I do ask for apologies, if anyone is needing to leave at a particular time, you can let me know at this time as well. So.
Mr. Chair, just on behalf of Mr. Neil, who's online, he's going to be leaving about 10 o'clock to chair another meeting.
Right. Okay. And welcome, Simon. So our independent member on the Performance Audit and Risk Committee, and proposed to be chair of that, to be decided today, confirmed today.
Thank you. Thank you.
So welcome, Simon, and thanks very much for joining us. So in addition to being part of the PAR committee, Simon is, part of that role actually is it's important that he's across a lot of the other bits and pieces that we do. So you will see him popping up in those other aspects of what we do with our work. Okay, are there any declarations of interest? None. No public forum. So moving on to confirmation of previous meeting minutes, item 4.1, moved Councillor Hopkins, seconded Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, I'll put it that we adopt those. Those in favour say aye. Aye. And against? That's carried. Thank you. And moving now to item 5.1, Chief Executive's post-election transitional leadership report.
Very briefly, the previous council at its last meeting or penultimate meeting delegated to me all the authority and responsibilities of council, so that in the interim period between election results and inauguration, any decisions that need to be taken could be taken to protect the interests of the council, the district and its communities. I, as part of that delegation, committed to report back on any such decisions, and I can confirm that I made no such decisions under those delegated powers during that time, which I'm sure some of you are very pleased about.
Councillor Hopkins and seconded Councillor Coles. Right, so any discussion? Commendations? Councillor Hopkins, will you put your microphone on, please?
Just a question to the Chief Executive. In light of the confession you've just made to us in public with a sort of a massive audience tuned in, do you think you've made productive use of your time as Chief Executive in this period when you could have transformed the world and ended up doing absolutely nothing?
So just for absolute clarity, I haven't been doing nothing within the time. I've been fully fulfilling my role and being extremely busy, but I haven't been making any decisions that would normally be the responsibility of council to make, which I think is a positive thing that I haven't had to do that.
Well answered. Thank you very much. Okay, I shall put it that we receive the information. Excuse me. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Now on to 6.1, election report. And hand over to you again, Mr. Farman.
Yes, I'm sure you're all familiar with the contents of this report now, but it's normal procedure to report the results of the election to the first council meeting, and the recommendation is to receive and note the information. Happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions? I just have one comment with a question. When we have the various announcements coming out, preliminary results and then the final result and so forth, it's often not mentioned the uncontested issues. And so, you know, for Councillor Cowles, the fact that, yeah, he was elected unopposed doesn't get mentioned until the final declaration. And I think it would be good feedback to give to Election NZ, who do our elections, to include that information where there is, just so people know that what those positions are, because otherwise they go looking for them and can't find them and aren't aware of it. So even just saying that as those progressive results come through, just having a reference to that would be good. You can talk to them.
Yeah, I'll certainly pass that on. Yeah,
thank you. Okay, any other questions? Councillor Hopkins?
Well, sorry, look, it's not a question, but since you made a comment yourself, I think two things. I'd like to see us as a council perhaps working with others to give some thought as to what might improve voter participation in future. I'm not sure that some of the remedies being proposed centrally at the moment are optimum or likely to be effective. The other thing that is interesting here is that the Ahuriri vote, which obviously there was no contest for council there, is down relative to everyone else. Is essentially half of all the people who could have voted did. We really do need to look at Ahuriri and why engagement there is low and why we've failed. We've only got 2 community board members. So I mean, I think we do as a council have to give some consideration to what's going on and how we might be able to change and improve the situation.
Yeah, I think it is an important issue, and it's one for the whole of local government in terms of you know, voter turnout. I'm informed, I wasn't here for previous elections, but I'm informed that, you know, the publicity campaign we had for elections was probably the highest profile we've had and the most we've invested in that. But you know, there's some fundamental issues that need to be addressed through the Future for Local Government review in terms of how local government works, its profile within the community, the significance people attach to it, and its ability to affect the priorities and ambitions of communities. That's what it comes down to. Its relevance to communities, and I think. Our electoral turnout didn't decrease as much as many parts of the country, which is a positive. But nevertheless, it did decrease, and Ahuriri was a significant part of that in terms of denting the turnout figures. But clearly across the board, there was a reduced turnout, and I think in engaging in that Future for Local Government review. We need to be inputting into that this is probably one of the most serious issues, because it affects our relevance and our ability to lead the local community and deal with issues. But I think there are things that we need to address through the transformation process as well in terms of that. Turning to Ahuriri specifically, I think we have started having discussions on that, but I think we need to have a lot more discussions on that. And again, some of that is about the fundamentals of how the council works as well, and giving some thought to that, so that we have visibility and presence in parts of the district outside of the immediate area of Oamaru. And I think that is a real issue for us in terms of how we deliver. part of that is how we work as well with communities, so that we are seen as a vital part and a support for them and enabling. And some of the things that we've discussed in recent days about that are fundamental to getting greater engagement in our work as a council, I think.
Okay, Councillor Kells.
Yeah, just I guess with regard to that question, and having been on the community board for the past 9 years, it has been an ongoing issue in the Ahariri. Still unopposed, whereas I'm often reminded no one's voted for me for a number of terms. And it is frustrating when we have to hold a by-election to engage, and then we seem to fill those positions. I think part of it is it's a large area with very few constituents. So connecting some of those people together, and I think we've already had some discussion around how effective are the community boards and how can we work better with the community boards to give them maybe a little bit more delegation. We have a very strong presence in the way of community groups in each of our areas or small townships within the ward. And there's a lot of doers up there, and I believe that enabling the community board to be able to do more would excite people and perhaps bring more people on board.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. And looking at the delegations, we get to those in the next few weeks, it's going to be really important, making sure that, again, people feel like their time is being used well, and it's worth being on these things, that they are having an effect, and that it goes beyond just making recommendations through to council. So totally agree with that. Did contact someone in Duntroon last night to raise the possibility of them standing. They weren't interested, but there's some targeting of communities, particularly. Obviously, we've currently got representation for Otumtata and Kuria, but like Duntroon and Marama, and even Lake Ohau, getting representation in some of those areas would be good as well. So yeah, it's promoting that a bit more and making sure that people are aware, and if we can get 3 really good people to put their hand up, then that'll be great. Okay, any other comments? Got that moved, seconded. No, so yeah, Councillor Holding and Councillor Hopkins. Right, those in favour say aye. And against, that's carried. Okay, moving on to the committee structure and remuneration proposal. So this has obviously taken up quite a bit of our time over the last couple of weeks as well. It's been great meeting with each of you individually a couple of times along that way, and coming up with what I think is there's a reasonable bit of refreshing that's gone on. There's allocation of responsibilities. I think making sure that our new councillors are feeling like their time is going to be valued by giving them responsibilities, and certainly getting away from the experience I had as a new councillor coming in a wee while ago, of basically just being expected to sit there and say nothing for 3 years. We don't want that from you. We want you all contributing. We've got a lot to do. We've got 11 of us around the table, and everyone needs to be firing as strongly as possible. So I think we've got that, and looking at having a review after 6 months just to see how everyone's going. There'll be monitoring and getting feedback along the way, of course. And we just want to make sure that that people are comfortable doing what they with the roles that they've got, and they're not overloaded, but equally not underloaded, and that they're not they're doing things as much as possible that they enjoy doing, rather than being on something they just do not like. So we'll see how that all goes. The portfolio lists, they won't become active as such. We'll approve them today, whatever any amendments there might be, but they until we get the the definition of exactly what responsibilities will be, and to a degree the delegations for those. We need to have those to both for your understanding individually, but also for staff to understand what can the portfolio holder for their particular activity be able to do or not do. So yeah, the opportunity to adopt those. There was one and under recommendation 5 was appointing councillors to various external and joint committees and other organisations and so on. One I missed out was the Oamaru Opera House Charitable Trust, which previously Deputy Mayor Tavendale was on. It's basically it's kind of like a friends group. It's a fundraiser group to do certain things. It doesn't meet that often. The current project that they've got is restoration of the dome inside the auditorium. Needs a bit of work, and some fundraising that's going on around that. So I do need a volunteer for that. Okay. So I'll just make sure anyone else interested? Councillor Ryan? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you've spent a lot of time in there as well. So yeah. Okay. As far as those two options go, deciding this on the hoof. We can. Okay. Right. If you're happy with that, Councillor Ryan. Okay, thank you. Right. So going through the recommendation or the recommendations, part of it is the whole structure, and one of the main changes we've had from last term was not reconstituting the assets committee or the community culture and regulatory committee, and instead having much more regular council meetings and having more going straight to council. It doesn't stop us having a two-step process for some of those things, because what we can do is have it go to the council, a report go to as a memorandum report, basically an information report, with the decision report coming 2 weeks later. So there's a mechanism to do that, and identifying those things which we might want a bit more time on, or we want the community to have a bit more opportunity to give feedback on over that time. So it's looking at those things. The fact that we will have council meetings every 2 weeks is helpful to staff. They're not running to a 6-week schedule where they've either got to, make sure they get it to the time frame, end up rushing to get it in there because it's going to be another 6 weeks before they can get it back in front of us. But actually, if things just need that wee bit extra time, know that there's another meeting 2 weeks later. So there's that aspect in there as well. Looking at the subcommittees and so on. So some of the committees we've had will reconstitute as subcommittees of council. So Harbour Area Subcommittee, and proposing some new membership there, but keeping the 4 community members that we've got. Grants and Awards will be a subcommittee with all councils on that, but rostered, and we'll need to make sure the delegations, when we agree to those, stipulate how we do that rostering. The Development Contributions Committee becomes a subcommittee, so that will operate under that regime as well. And also District Plan Review was just part of the Community Culture and Regulatory Committee last time, but now it's stepped up to have its own subcommittee for that. And then rather than having an exec committee that we've had in the past, which looked after a number of things, economic development, CE employment, and CCO responsibilities around shareholder meetings and appointments and so on, we'll have a CCO shareholder subcommittee and a chief executive employment subcommittee. So those are some of the differences there. And a new one that we're bringing in is just to give us a bit of oversight around the roading contract, make sure that we're having influence there or giving it the right scrutiny for something that's pretty much the largest expenditure item on our budget, having a subcommittee to oversee that roading contract. Otherwise, hopefully everyone's had a chance to absorb it all, and happy to take any questions. No questions? Okay, happy to take a motion. Deputy Mayor Halaleli, move that. Seconded Councillor Linwood. Thank you. Comments? Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, Mayor, look, I'm very glad to hear you say that the portfolios will be dormant for the time being, because when I read this, I noted and wrote that it was important that we defined the portfolio roles. And I think it's also important for everyone here around the table to realise this is entirely within our control. On page 24, for the sake of argument, or later in this report, we're advised that the Local Government Act gives you the power to appoint committees, chairs and deputies, but there's nothing about portfolios. So the council as an entity owns what the portfolios are, in my view, and also what role they will play. Equally, I'm concerned that the remuneration is predicated on portfolio involvements rather than committees. I get the logic of that because we have fewer committees, but it does seem to me to potentially create the possibility of portfolios having an undue influence, particularly when, in a lot of instances, at this stage, we only have a portfolio of one. For the sake of argument, you're the only person with a portfolio on central government reforms or transformation. Councillor Linwood is the only portfolio member involved with public transport. Now, it becomes very important, given that there's a small number of people involved in some of these roles at the moment, that we know exactly what they can do, how they're going to report, how the rest of us will know if they're meeting, when they're meeting, and what may or may not be fed into the fortnightly meetings of council. We can't debate those things today, but I raise these issues because I think they're fundamental and very important. And I think the way the portfolios are structured at the moment without definition does raise the potential of the dictatorship of the minority or the undue influence of the minority. So I'm glad that we're going to have a fuller discussion about that. And I would urge other councillors to think carefully about portfolios, because I believe the Act gives us a bit more influence in terms of what they are and how they operate than is the case with committees and appointments of chairs and deputies. And the legislation that's quoted in this report would support that position, in my view.
Yeah, no, totally support that, and which is why, as you've acknowledged, they will be dormant for the time being until we get that clarity in there. And so the devil was in that detail, and it is intended that there will be very little decision-making ability, but what it does is give each of you around the table the opportunity to lead in particular areas of activities which you've indicated you're interested in during the meetings that I had, with the odd wild card thrown in there as well, just to stretch and people's aspirations and ambitions and maybe mindsets as well occasionally. So that's really where it's at. It's the idea is that they're a bit of a sounding board for staff, but equally that it's not up to me or just committee chairs to drive particular activities to make them happen. It's up to, you know, we've all got roles to play in that, and that's really important as we, you know, become an inclusive team that's actually focused on getting the best for our community. Deputy Mayor Halalele.
I understand Councillor Hopkins' perspective, and that's correct. You make some really good points. I think also when we look at the portfolio style, it's just another way of helping to designate and distribute some of the interest areas that a lot of our elected members have already indicated and where some of their strengths may lie. So I think it's another good way to help share the load and also just bringing those ideas to the rest of the council. So I see it as a positive step. It could be more towards a strengths-based skill set type of portfolio that we're looking at. So there's no exclusion of anyone in the wider council. It's just designating specific people towards some of the topic areas that we actually need to get good cover over. So that's where I stand.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? I should have asked this earlier. Just seen it in one of my notes. Are we able to, and can we, as part of this, resolve what the time before meetings when we will get agendas? So that's quite important. It may not be today that we do it, or it may not be in this context, but I would like us to have some clear understanding of, because we did say in the last term that we'd like a longer lead time. So can we resolve that today, or is that for another day?
It's not for today, but there's a wider discussion I want to have with everyone and get agreement on some of the structure and how we structure some of the things. So we've got things like the activity update, which is happening, I think we scheduled for something like every 8 weeks. But equally, I want the opportunity to make sure there's a portfolio update. So the things that aren't coming through in those other areas that any of you might be involved in, that we have opportunities for each of you to give updates on them. Sometimes you'll do that if it's, you know, more topical at the time, to maybe do it during councillor briefing. Other times it'll be, you know, already covered in an activity update or a report or something like that. But for those things that aren't in either of those, the opportunity to have a portfolio update with, you know, which might be once a month or something like that, but not everyone necessarily needing to do it. Maybe it's, you know, rostered, having 2 or 3 each time, just go into some detail on the things that they are doing in their area. So it's, you know, making sure that we've all got the opportunity to be up to speed on whatever's going on, that things aren't being done, you know, by one person and it's being ignored. Coming back to your specific request around the timing, yeah, it's all part of having a discussion with the CEO just to see what is feasible and how that's going to be managed. It should be easier with the 2 weekly council meeting because there will be a much smoother flow of reports and so on. I say hopefully, but yeah, I will ask Mr. Parley to make comment on just where he sees that going and what commitments he might be able to make at the moment, or look to the future.
Yeah, I mean, we did discuss that with the last council about getting agendas out sooner, so that, you know, councillors had more time to read them, and, you know, not assuming or you know, making councillors, you know, necessarily read them over the weekend, but giving them much more time. I've got to say that, you know, we haven't got there yet. I think it's been a bit more challenging. And, you know, we're still too often coming up against the sort of, you know, the statutory deadline for issuing agendas. That's not where we want to be, and we're doing some work, and that sits, you know, squarely with me and my team to make sure that that happens, so that we, you know, respect your time and give you enough time to fully consider what are quite long agendas sometimes.
Thank you. And sorry, just very quickly note that when I said 11 of us around this table, be 12 if we count Mr. Neil, and you actually mentioned him in the portfolios there, looking after those things that the park committee has direct responsibility for around finance, risk and performance. So you don't get off scot-free, Simon. Right, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things that I really enjoyed in the last triennium when we started the pre-publishing process of some papers coming to council through Convene. And it was a way for us to interact with officers. We probably didn't use it as well as we could have, but for the benefit of the new councillors, I would encourage you to take that opportunity, because we can have some input and also gain some knowledge with plenty of time, rather than frantically reading papers the night before council.
Which is only slightly better than reading them on the morning. Oh. But no, it definitely helps, particularly if there's some meatier items that actually you need a few days to read and absorb. Councillor Percival.
Yeah, I accept the changes that have been made to a certain degree, and some are positive. Some, to me, I'm a little bit disappointed in the fact that I do believe that changing the main committee structure or appointments doesn't sit well with me. I can't quite come to grips, even though all the rationale you've given me in discussion, I can't come to grips why we're not retaining the assets committee, which has responsibility for the largest expenditure of this council. I don't think we're going to get, regardless of the assurances I've had, that we're going to get the information that we need to make good decisions. And I am pleased that there will be I hope, an intense 6-monthly review of this whole process.
Yeah, I don't see any reason that we won't get the same information we've had in the past, or at least the same. You know, that's what we've had to make decisions on, and you know, it's the same people writing the same reports for the same issues, with different issues perhaps, but yeah. So yeah, but it is up to us as well, as elected members. You know, that yeah, we need to make sure the process allows everyone to feed in and say, you know, we're not getting enough information on particular reports or particular issues and so on. There's obviously things like workshops and so on that we have where we get the background information and have got time to assimilate that a little bit more. So it's making sure that we've got an overall structure which does allow all of the scrutiny that we need to have, the opportunity to ask all the questions, the chance to ask for further information. So those, if we get all that right, it doesn't then need to sit with a committee and a committee chair, because actually we're all sharing that and making sure that we're getting what we need. And it doesn't matter, you know, if something's a portfolio area of someone else, doesn't stop any of us from contributing into there as well. And ideally through the councillor who has that portfolio, but there's different mechanisms there as well. Okay. Right. Well, Councillor Thompson again.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, but just following up on my learned colleague's question, something's become patently obvious to me through what is proposed. Three Waters seems to have disappeared off our radar. Is that a risk, a calculated risk, or is that something that we will have to revisit?
Three Waters is obviously, one of the major things that's happening. We've still got it as, as Councillor Hopkins pointed out earlier, the reforms, central government reforms are something that I'm carrying, and I don't see that they're going to change at all. In fact, they will keep getting reported through to council. We'll keep having the updates and various things. Things have changed a little bit because of timing, but equally it's all blown up a little bit more again yesterday with the announcement from Auckland and Christchurch councils around an alternative model, and we'll see how that goes. I guess one of the things around being you know, opposed to the government's proposed model, but still working with government on how to make it better. As you know, I've got a phone call with Michael Lovett, the Deputy CE of DIA, later this morning to talk about that new proposal, and I guess he's just wanting a bit of feedback from our perspective on that. So the chance to input into some of those things is there. Yeah, and there's some good things in that model, for example. How those things get to us is going to be probably the same mechanisms that we've had in the past. And yeah, if we decide as a group that we actually want, you know, a working group on that or other ones, we can do that. One of the next things though will be getting the transition unit representatives down here and actually talk to us, but also have a meeting, you know, want to have a meeting with the rural consumers, and so they can hear straight from the National Transition Unit what's proposed for rural schemes, what exemptions might be able to be made, and how they can operate better without having the full cost that you know would come with the full 3 services, which they won't be getting. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, Mayor Kircher, I know we're about to adopt standing orders, and in theory, according to standing orders, none of us should be doing what you're allowing us to do, which is speak more than once. But we're on a different topic now in a sense, and I think 3 Waters is a whole of council matter. And you've already circulated an email today asking us to discuss with you the new proposal. And I think I'd be willing, and I'm sure other councillors will as well, be willing to have that conversation. And then we can take a position as a collective group, as an entity. I don't think at this stage it specifically needs either a portfolio or a subcommittee, but I do think we continue to have a position of concerned opposition to the government's proposal. And we now have in front of us an alternative, and I think we have an obligation to decide how we collectively respond to that, not who we appoint to be a delegated subcommittee.
Thank you. Hopefully that helps, Councillor Thompson. Okay, yeah, I'm going to put the motion. So but basically that's the recommendations as they stand there, with the addition of Oamaru Opera House Trust representative being Councillor Ryan. So those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? It's carried. Thank you again for all your commitment to getting us to this point. As we say, there's a wee bit more work to be done, and the devil will be in the detail around how the roles will be carried out and any delegations to them. But yeah, I look forward to trying the system out and hopefully making sure that you are all contributing as well as possible. I didn't really cover the remuneration side, did I? So just in retrospect, you've approved it. Just being clear of process. So Remuneration Authority determines what the mayoral salary is, and they determine what the salary pool is for councillors. They determine what the salaries are for community board members and for their chairs. So they don't have any discretion. For us, we've got discretion about how we allocate the pool across councillors. Gone for a very flat structure, recognising that everyone's going to be working hard. You're all going to have responsibilities, and so just acknowledging the greater workload and responsibilities that Deputy Mayor has. So with Deputy Mayor being paid more, with the DLC chair showing as being lower, but it's a remunerated position. So the reality is it's going to be similar to the portfolio lead. So everyone else being on a fairly even footing as far as remuneration goes. That was increased by the Remuneration Authority, taking effect from the election, as they try and make sure that councils of even smaller districts, that people are remunerated, that we can encourage and attract, really good skills and talent around the table. which obviously succeeded here. So, you know, that's hopefully something that, well, obviously you've agreed to it, so that's where we're at. Right, next we'll go to item 6.3, which is appointments to community boards. Fairly straightforward. I'm not sure whether, no, so I mean, it's an automatic, relatively automatic. There's the only one councillors who can be on community boards, like councillors who are from the specific ward, and for Artery and Waihemo, which have community boards, we've got one councillor each there, so it's those lucky two. So someone to move that. Councillor McCone, Councillor Linwood, thank you. Any comments?
Congratulations, both.
Those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Against, that is carried. Thank you very much. Right. 6.4, confirmation of updated meeting schedule for the remainder of the calendar year. Yes. Mr. Palmley.
I'll take the report as read. This is a simple procedural matter really in terms of confirming the meetings of the council and its committees and community boards between now and the end of the calendar year. I think the proposal is that we will bring a further report for the end of the calendar year with a meeting schedule for the next calendar year here for you to note and approve.
Probably, there's some things which aren't noted on here, which is possibly some workshops and so on. Following our strategy planning weekend, we talked about having a couple of follow-up sessions before Christmas. So, yeah, we'll figure out when they are best going to fit in amongst all of that. So, trying very much to keep to the Tuesday meeting day as only as much as possible, but yeah, we'll just see how that all pans out. Mondays being the second option if Tuesdays aren't available. So someone's happy to move that we approve that. That's the Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, may I ask a question?
You may.
I'm just, can the chief executive just let us know how he imagines the council activity update will happen? I mean, we've got 2 PAR meetings and 2 council meetings. We're sort of familiar with how they and the community boards, but that council activity update is new. So how do you imagine that working or running or operating?
We have had one.
Yeah, we have had a council activity update session already. So, you know, we've started that. I think, we will, I think, continue with that format, but welcome feedback on that as to whether that, works for elected members or whether, as a new meeting, whether it's, needs adjustment.
So, yeah, and just clarification overall, it's stripping out the activity updates from each of the previous committees, including the PAR committee used to include IT and so on, and there was an activity update in there for that. So it's bringing them all out of there, bringing them all together on the same day, and making sure that actually all councillors are able to take part, and the respective managers will be here and they can be questioned and complimented wherever possible as well.
Yes, I remember now, I think.
Okay. Right, we got that moved, seconded. Those in favour say aye. Against, carried. All right, interim continuation of current standing orders, followed by the same thing for the code of conduct. Mr. Palmley.
Briefly on this one, we're required to have standing orders which guide the procedures of council. It's up to the council to decide what its standing orders are that it wants to be, and as long as they're legally compliant with the relevant legislation. We will be having some sessions on the standing orders and the other legal framework, in particular with Simpson Grierson, over the course of this month, to get a better understanding of that before returning to council on the 6th of December with the model new standing orders proposed by LGNZ for debate and adoption, or otherwise as the council decides. So in the interim, the proposal is that we carry over the standing orders from the previous triennium unamended at this stage, and give that time to consider the implications of the legislation for any changes we might want to make to new standing orders to be adopted by the council.
And just as noted before by Councillor Hopkins, standing orders wouldn't normally allow multiple speaking once the motion's on the table, but it is always up to the chair as to how the chair wants to use standing orders or not. So and as much as possible we try and allow flexibility, but also it's handy to curb any undue enthusiasm, but also make sure the meetings keep flowing through. Having said that, I did say it could take us through to 11. We know we're potentially going to finish much sooner. We could go through all 120 pages, page by page, over the next two reports if you want to stretch it out. But I'm not seeing much enthusiasm for that. So, any questions first of all? Councillor Hopkins, you want to move?
Well, I'm more than happy to move, yes, but I can't, while speaking to it, having moved, if I may.
I'll grab a seconder first.
Well, look, just speaking to it, it is interim. That's fine, great, no issues. I think it would be helpful, given that half the council is new, if officers in the process of getting ready to adopt the new ones, which will be in place for 3 years, to highlight potential areas of interest and contention, like how we vote, points of order, behaviour, casting votes, things like that. There's a lot of this stuff is pretty run of the mill and neither surprising nor problematic, but there's a few potentially contentious things, and it would be useful if officers, I think, highlighted any proposed changes, just literally highlighted them visually, and also drew to our attention in the sort of period leading up to the adoption of the new standing orders, things that they think would be beneficial if we considered as issues of importance.
Governance advisor, comment on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that is the intention, councillors, that I will be giving you both the summary of the changes that have been made from the model, from the previous one to this one, and highlighting some of the issues. You do have options to choose from when you're actually adopting standing orders, but also I take on board what the council has said, any other contentious issues. So I'm happy to do that. And my intention is to get those documents done as soon as possible and put them up into convene ahead of time so that you can read the documents ahead of the 21st of November workshop with Simpson Grierson. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Put it. Those in favour say aye. Against? That is carried. And so code of conduct is next. And yeah, probably what I'd say about that is it's again quite a long document. There are some really important things in there. As we've talked about over the strategy planning weekend, it's the backstop, I suppose, the backup for when things go wrong. But we've all agreed that we want to make sure that we actually work in a way that is actually much more positive, that we focus on doing everything right and respecting each other and so forth. So hopefully this will be a document that as much as we're adopting the interim one, when we adopt the modified one for the term, it will be something that we never use. All going well. So, any comments?
Said what I would say.
No, okay, yeah. All good. So, any questions or comments on it? Councillor Hopkins.
Sorry, look, the one thing that did occur to me reading this last night, we've talked about having a charter, which I like, and the charter will probably focus on positive behaviour. The code of conduct is probably more how we deal with exceptions of the disorderly, the unpleasant and the unwelcome. I just wonder in the process of adopting this, whether we could and should give some consideration of trying to amalgamate the two, because it does seem to me to be slightly cumbersome to have a charter and a code of conduct. And if we can amalgamate them, combine them, it may be useful, beneficial. And the code of conduct is ours. Local government says, here's a suggestion, but each council must in the end choose its own. So I just pose that as a possibility.
Yeah. So something we can discuss a bit more. I want the charter to be something that we individually sign, literally sign up to, as opposed to the code of conduct, which obviously we'll agree to, or the majority agree to. So yeah, as opposed to putting your name on the charter, I think it's here's the positive things that we want to do and make sure that we happy to agree to, and as opposed to the other. So anyway, we'll have that discussion. It's one of those other sessions that we will be having before Christmas. Okay, any other comments? Let's move. Did I move it? No, someone like that. Have we moved? Yep. Councillor Holding and Councillor McCone. Thank you. Any further comment? Right, I shall put that one. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
And against, that is carried. Moving now to page 142. Appointment of a registrar. So Mr. Palmley, would you like to explain this one?
Yeah, again, this is something we will cover off in the sessions that we've got over the course of November, but there's some changes being made in terms of members' interests, requiring that a registrar is appointed and that a register of members' interests is kept, and that would be the role of the registrar. Most councils are deciding that should sit with the chief executive. I think we're sort of finding our way on that as well. But the proposal is that that sits with me initially, but with the ability to delegate that to a group manager. And this would be a live register that would be your responsibility to update the registrar in terms of your various interests, adding to transparency in the decision-making process of local government, and that's what it's aimed at in particular. I think like I said, we'll have more discussions on this over November, so you can better understand what the legislation is saying, what the requirements are on you as an individual.
Thank you. Any questions? Someone like to move? Councillor Lackler, Councillor Hopkins. Thank you. Any comments? Okay. Right, so those in favour say aye, and against, that's carried. And last item 6.8 on page 153, a minute of appreciation for outgoing elected members. So as many of you are aware, our last meeting we farewelled some of the retiring members, 3 councillors and the community board chair for Hariri. There was another community board member we didn't have on that day, and that was Ross Menzies. And then through the election process, we've lost Kelly Williams and Katrina Dodd from the council and Wahimo Community Board respectively. So this acknowledges them as well. as well as the ones that had been able to give a valedictory speech. So any questions? Someone move these, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Holding. Any comments anyone wants to make? Okay, I will put it. Those in favour? And those against? That's carried. Thanks very much, everyone. That was quite a efficient one to breeze through. So so well done. We'll just appreciate everyone's participation. Good to see new councillors putting their hands up and so on along the way. Something we just want to really make sure happens all the way through. So thank you very much. With that, declare the meeting closed.